Okay, quick update on my alleged VDSL interference. Now, I'll preface this by saying I'm not an expert on this. I do not claim to be, and I could be wrong with what I'm showing you. I'll openly admit that I'm not an expert. I'm just someone who's trying to figure this out. I'm documenting it as I go along and showing you. So I could be giving you duff information here, and I say supposed VDSL interference problem because I've got a couple of people who have, I'm looking at my phone here, who've messaged me. I'm not going to read it out word for word, but they're saying because I've got cable internet, it can't be VDSL, it must be DOCSIS. Now, this is something I need to look into a bit more. What I don't know, and if someone does know, maybe you can comment down below. What I don't know is whether the Lentos software that I use on my computer here, whether that can pick up DOCSIS and show it as if it was VDSL. Now, I've had an extremely helpful message here from someone who apparently used to work for my ISP, and they seem to know their stuff, so I'm going to be messaging them back and seeing if I can find out a bit more. But they're saying yes, it can cause interference, but it shouldn't on 80 meters. So it's 40 meters up to 70 sems. I think he said you can get interference on from your cable. Now, what I think is happening, and I'll reiterate what I said before. I think I'm not convinced the interference is coming from the cable, but as the RSGB said when I spoke to their people, they seem to think that the cable can be picking up that interference from somewhere and re-radiating it. So I'm not necessarily saying the interference is coming from the cable or being caused by the cable, but I think the cable could possibly be picking it up, effectively acting as an antenna, picking it up on its shield and re-radiating it. And certainly I seem to be picking up something on the Lentos. Now, whether that is, as I said, DOCSIS or whether it is VDSL, I'm not too sure. So, like I say, more research needed on my part. And as I said, I don't claim to be an expert on this, but I do want to speak to this person who says they used to work for the ISP and see what I can figure out. They've got some really good suggestions in there as well, so I'm going to be looking at that. In terms of where we're at so far, I have submitted a complaint to Ofcom a couple of weeks ago now. Initially, I was actually very impressed with Ofcom because I sent it a written letter, second class post. So they got back to me. I think it was 2-3 days after I sent that. So bearing in mind the time it would have taken to get there, they must have only just got that letter that morning. And they phoned me up and said, okay, we'll look at getting the lines rebalanced, but we need your written authorization to pass your details on to OpenReach, who look after all the cabling, to get it rebalanced. So I said, yes, that's absolutely fine. So they emailed me later that evening and asked for my written permission. And I emailed them back saying, yes, absolutely, no problem. You have my permission to pass my details on. And then the next morning, I got another email from them saying, actually, we're dropping your case because I might have made a bit of a mistake here, because I thought it would show willingness to cooperate and be seen to be doing the best I can to help the situation. I said I suspected there's some interference coming from my cable connection, and I'm working with my internet service provider to deal with this. And that, it turns out, was probably actually a mistake, because they emailed me back and said, right, we're closing your case for now. Contact us again once you've sorted it out with your internet service provider. So that approach with Ofcom has fallen by the wayside at the moment, but once I've sorted out the issues with my ISP, if that is indeed what it is, then I'll be re-raising that again. Like I said, I want to get the cable moved because even if it's not causing the interference, I think it might be kind of picking it up and bringing it into the house on the shield. So I still want to get that cable moved. So Ofcom didn't really go anywhere. That was a bit of a flop. RSGB, I will say, they're not the quickest to respond, but when they have responded, they've been extremely helpful. So full credit to the RSGB. Thank you very much for their help, and I'll be keeping that line of communication open. As for my internet service provider, so I raised a complaint with them, and they got back to me saying it can take up to a month to sort this out. And they got back to me and said, yes, we'll move the cable, but it's going to cost you £100. So I've been on the phone with them. I had a bit of an argument with them over whether or not it's a fault with the system or whether I should pay or whatever. And in the end, I relented and said, look, I'll just pay the money, just move the cable. So I booked the engineer, and then about 2 or 3 days later, they got in contact with me and said, actually, we're not doing house visits because of the whole COVID situation. So that's fallen by the wayside. I have raised this time a written complaint with them. So it's back in the course of my ISP at the moment, waiting to hear back from them whether or not, because I basically said, look, I'm picking up interference off of it. It's a problem with the routing of the cable, if nothing else. So I'm waiting to hear back. To be honest, I'm suspecting I'm probably going to have to pay the money to get the cable moved. But such is life. So I don't think moving that cable is going to be the be all and end all. But I think the less that's up there in the loft, the less I'm going to pick up. So I think that's probably going to help. And I know in one of my earlier videos, I moved my coax cables for my amateur radio further away from the coax cable from my ISP, and it did actually reduce my noise level very, very slightly, only by about half an S point, maybe an S point. So I think getting that cable out won't cure my problem, but it might help. So I'm willing to take a chance on that, spend the money and get the cable moved. So that's where we're at the moment. I'm currently waiting for my ISP to do something which may not happen until after the whole COVID situation blows over, because for some, well, understandably, I suppose, they don't want their engineers going into too many houses if it's unnecessary. So I'm going to keep pushing that, and like I say, I want to talk to this person who says they used to work for the internet service provider, and just try and get a feel for what they think, because they've put, and I need to fully digest what they've put in their message, but it was quite a long message, but had a lot of very, very helpful suggestions. So there you go, quick update. That's where we're at the moment.